Stop. Listen closely, because what you are about to hear will fundamentally shatter the comfortable illusions you cling to. For too long, you have been conditioned to believe that morality is your shield, your strength, your guiding light. You've been told it's what separates you from the beasts, what makes you worthy. I am here to tell you that in the brutal, unforgiving arena of human existence, that very morality is often your most profound, debilitating weakness. This isn't a theory. It's a cold, hard truth, laid bare by the most uncompromising strategist history has ever known, Niccolo Machiavelli. He understood that the world is not a playground for saints, but a battleground for survival, where the naive are devoured and the strong prevail. Today we dissect the fatal flaw of virtue and reveal how to transcend it. Machiavelli, that relentless surgeon of the human condition, stripped away the pleasantries and exposed the raw, ugly truth of power dynamics. He looked at princes, at states, at men and women, not as they ought to be, but as they are. And what he found was not a world driven by righteous ideals, but by self-interest, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of dominance. Conventional morality, with its rigid codes of good and evil, right and wrong, is a luxury few can afford in the real world, and one that can, and often does, lead to ruin. Consider this. When you operate from a place of unyielding moral purity, you make yourself predictable. You paint yourself into a corner. You are easily manipulated by those who have no such qualms. While you agonize over the ethical implications of every move, your adversary, unburdened by such introspection, is already seizing the advantage, exploiting your hesitation, preying on your perceived goodness. This isn't cynicism. It's pragmatism. It's understanding that the world does not reward your intentions. It rewards your results. Think about the historical figures lauded as good leaders. How many truly achieved lasting power, secured their legacy, or protected their people by always turning the other cheek? History is littered with the graves of the good and the righteous who were outmaneuvered, betrayed, and ultimately destroyed by those who understood the true nature of power. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for wanton cruelty. He was advocating for effectiveness. He understood that sometimes, to achieve a greater good, or even just to survive, actions must be taken that a moral man would recoil from. But a moral man might also find himself, and everything he holds dear, utterly destroyed. Your emotional attachment to moral principles blinds you. It creates vulnerabilities that cunning individuals will exploit without a second thought. If you are always striving to be nice, fair, or just in a world that is none of those things, you become a sheep among wolves. And the wolves, my friend, do not discriminate between a good sheep and a bad sheep. They only see a meal. This is why Machiavelli warned against the perils of unadulterated virtue for a ruler. A prince who is always good will come to ruin among so many who are not good. And what applies to princes applies to you, in your own personal kingdom, your own life. Let's be brutally honest. Societal morality is often a construct designed to control the masses, to keep people compliant, predictable, and easily managed. It's a convenient narrative for those in power to maintain their grip, ensuring you don't step out of line. Don't challenge the status quo too vigorously. When you internalize these rules without question, you are not elevating yourself. You are subjecting yourself to a framework that may not serve your highest self-interest, your protection, or your ascent. How many times have you been taken advantage of because you were too nice, too trusting, or too understanding? How many opportunities have you missed because you were held back by a rigid adherence to what others deemed right, even when it went against your own intuition or strategic advantage? This is the insidious cost of unquestioning morality. It shackles your potential, dulls your edge, and leaves you exposed. Machiavelli's counsel wasn't about becoming a monster, but about becoming resilient, adaptable, and above all, effective. He understood that a leader, or indeed any individual striving for impact, must be like the fox and the lion. The lion cannot protect itself from snares, and the fox cannot defend itself from wolves. Therefore, one must be a fox to recognize snares, and a lion to frighten wolves. Morality in its purest form leaves you vulnerable to both. It tells you to trust, to be open, to lay down your defenses. Precisely what a predator desires. Your task, then, is not to discard all ethical considerations, but to understand their true utility and limitations. It is to cultivate a pragmatic detachment, an ability to assess situations not through the lens of what is good or bad, but what is effective or ineffective for your goals, your survival, and your prosperity. This is psychological warfare against your own conditioning. You must ruthlessly examine every belief you hold and ask, does this serve me, or does it make me weak? Does this empower me, or does it make me a target? Machiavelli understood that reputation is paramount, but he also understood that the appearance of virtue is often more powerful than virtue itself. You don't need to be morally upright in every instance, but you must appear so when it serves your purpose. This isn't hypocrisy, it's strategic intelligence. It's the ability to don the mask of whatever character is required by the situation, to wield public perception as another tool in your arsenal. The world is a stage, and you are its principal actor. If you play the role of the infallible saint, you are setting yourself up for an impossible performance and an inevitable downfall. Consider the concept of forgiveness. In the realm of personal relationships, it can be a healing balm. In the brutal world of power, unconditional forgiveness for those who have wronged you can be an invitation for repeated betrayal. Machiavelli would argue that you must never forget a slight, not out of petty vindictiveness, but out of strategic self-preservation. Those who have harmed you once are capable of doing so again. To extend grace blindly is to hand your enemies the sword with which they will eventually strike you down. This isn't about holding grudges. It's about discerning who is worthy of your trust and who is a perennial threat. The true strength lies not in adherence to a rigid moral code, but in the flexibility to adapt, to be ruthless when necessary, compassionate when advantageous, and always strategically aware. It means understanding that the path to protecting what you value most, your freedom, your power, your peace of mind, may sometimes require actions that cause others discomfort or even pain. This is the bitter pill that few are willing to swallow, but it is the medicine for those who wish to thrive in a world that shows no mercy to the weak. This is why the nice guy finishes last. This is why the good person often gets walked all over. They confuse their internal moral compass with an external reality that simply does not conform to it. They project their own virtues onto others, expecting reciprocal goodness, only to be met with cunning, ambition, and exploitation. Machiavelli would scoff. He would tell you to discard such childish notions and face the world with open, unblinking eyes. Cultivating this Machiavellian mindset means developing emotional detachment. It means separating your feelings from your strategic decisions. When faced with a difficult choice, ask yourself, what is the most effective path forward regardless of how it feels or how it might be perceived by the sentimental? This is how you forge yourself into a bulletproof individual, immune to the psychological ploys of others, unswayed by emotional blackmail, and relentlessly focused on your objectives. It is not about becoming cruel for cruelty's sake. It is about becoming untouchable through strategic awareness. It is about understanding that sometimes the most moral act you can perform is to protect yourself and your interests, even if it means appearing immoral to those who cling to superficial judgments. You cannot save the world if you are constantly being dragged down by its inherent brutality. You must first secure your own position, fortify your own castle. In your daily life, this means 1. Questioning authority, not just political authority, but the moral authority that society attempts to impose upon you. Does this rule truly serve justice, or does it serve control? Does it elevate you or diminish you? 2. Strategic empathy. Understand others' motivations, their weaknesses, their desires. Use this understanding not necessarily for altruism, but for strategic advantage. Predict their moves, anticipate their deceptions. 3. Ruthless prioritization. Your energy, your time, your resources are finite. Dedicate them to what genuinely serves your ascent, not to the endless demands of those who would drain you dry under the guise of good deeds. 4. Mastering appearance. Learn to project the image that best serves your current objective. Be a lion when strength is needed, a fox when cunning is required. Do not be confined by a single static persona. 5. Embracing calculated risk. Sometimes the moral path is the path of inaction, of stagnation. The Machiavellian mind understands that progress often requires bold, decisive action, even if it carries an element of perceived wrongness to the uninitiated. This is a challenging path, for it demands that you shed comforting illusions. It demands that you look at the harsh realities of human nature and accept them, rather than fighting against them with futile idealism. But it is also the path to genuine power, to self-mastery, and to the ability to navigate a brutal world with strength, not weakness. Remember, Machiavelli did not write to make men evil. He wrote to make them effective. He wrote to arm the wise against the deceptions of the foolish, and the strong against the machinations of the weak. Your choice is clear. Remain shackled by a naive morality that leaves you vulnerable, or embrace the pragmatic truth and forge yourself into an unstoppable force. The world will not wait for you to be good. It will simply move on, leaving you behind. If this brutal truth resonated with you, if you feel that shift in your perspective, then like this video, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you never miss another dose of uncompromising truth. It is time to stop being a pawn in someone else's game and become the architect of your own destiny. The journey to true strength begins now. Subscribe for more videos.